Good morning, welcome back to the studio. Don't mind my color swatching of losing my mind over what colors to put on the wall. So we have poetic word magnets, and I like to mess with those and make my own little random verses. And what's interesting about using those is you're really limited on the words, but not only what words you can use, but there's only so many thes and extra s's because they give you extra s's to pluralize, and then they give you ings to make words from like think to thinking and stuff like that. So when you have a limited amount of words and ways to adjust words, you can only write so many things. So as I'm like going through and trying to figure out what I'm saying, I have like ideas of what I'm actually going, like what the concept is as I'm writing it out. I'm not really writing out, moving the magnets about. And you come across points where you have this idea, but you can't quite fit the words that are available to make it sound how you want it to sound. So you have to sit there and make adjustments and hope that it comes across the way you want it to. There was a few times where I was like, oh, this would be a fantastic, next line to this poem. And I stare at all the magnets and like, I can't quite make that work. So what can I do in its place that still makes sense and still gets the idea across? And I ended up with this little blurb. And the other day I was going through my photos, I was going through my Instagram stories, and I had done a story where I was just like, look at my poetry. And I thought I should actually make an image based off of that. So that's what we're going to do today. We are going to explore an area that I have never shared with anybody. Really, maybe a couple close friends. I haven't tried writing anything in quite a while outside of messing around with those magnets, which by the way, that little poem thing that I wrote with the magnets is also years old at this point. Maybe I should try to do a new one. There is a story from when I was in high school. So with my classes in school, my grades weren't the greatest because if I didn't have an interest in it, I did not even really attempt to do anything with it. So I had this English class where I wasn't paying attention most of the time. And then we hit a spot where we were talking about poetry, which we were assigned, like different individuals were assigned an assignment to make a poem based off of a type of poem. So I got free verse, there's the rhyming and what I don't even remember at this point. But I got free verse and I wrote it, and then I got called on in class next time we were talking about it, which by the way, I hate public speaking. Ooh. So I read that, and my teacher came up to me later, and he was like, "Did you write that?" And I was like, "Yes, I did." He's like, "And you didn't, get it from anywhere?" "No, I did not." And to this day, I do not know if he was impressed or concerned, or, a combination of the two. If this part of my voiceover sounds a little bit different, it's because, it's a different day. And I messed with my settings on my volume on my mic and my camera again. I'm having issues there. As you can see here, you can see where my light source is up in the top, and I eventually end up changing where that's at, which, is a consequence of me not planning ahead and working a little more intuitively. The other thing is that I had forgotten that it was supposed to be a night scene, and I was like, oh shit, so I started darkening it up. But anywho's, back to the poetry writing stuff, which by the way, I'm not a writer, and I don't consider anything that I do to be good. But I think I got it from my mom. My mom used to, and still sometimes does on rare occasion, writes little blurbs and thoughts and moments of reflection, kind of like a free verse poetry thing going on. For me, it started from working memory, that is. When I was a kid, I used to think I could write music, and I would write lyrics. And I remember I had this one song called Acid Rain, and looking back on it, it's pretty bad. I even remember how I sung it, and I'm sorry to disappoint, that's not going to happen. I'm working on this picture right now, and I have these buildings down here in the bottom. I'm just doing my sketchy beginning pieces, and I keep looking at them from afar and thinking, God damn, that looks like AI. Anyways, after that, at some point, I started writing poems about like death and meditation and darkness and spirits and demise and other realms, all of that ethereal, not necessarily ethereal. What would you call that? Hmm, I don't know. Kind of other world. Oh, astral. Kind of astral related, I guess. You get what I mean, maybe. But it's no surprise that I ended up gravitating towards things like H.P. Lovecraft and Edgar Allan Poe and other things that are in that realm. Though something I have learned about myself is that unless it's a serious matter or I'm just like really not in the best of moods where I don't feel like talking observation mode, blah blah blah, other random instances mixed in there, I have the hardest time taking myself seriously. I mean, half the time I talk, I end my sentences with like little giggles. See, and then I notice it, and then I giggle, and I'm like, what? What are you doing? Stop it! Ah! Fuck. No. Oh, I also, at this point, I got really nervous doing the branches. I was holding that off. At first I wasn't going to do a whole lot, and then I was going to do a bunch, and then I was like scared, and then I had to reacquaint myself with branches, because if you're too stiff when you're drawing branches, it's going to look really stiff. And branches, even though they're made of wood, are not that stiff. Okay. A mortal longing for sleep. When dreams bestow a curious companion, mischievous thee, the blackbird, only yielding to death, quiet. Our friend his cunning face hissed, as if to say farewell. Warm light above, a trick I measure, hastily breaking the night. Foul tale of torment. Alas, sweet mercy, beautiful sun, there across all, chase out my discontent, that wonderful gift, life.